Hey guys, it's Kesara, and today I'm going to be doing my spoiler-free review for Black Leopard, Red Wolf by Marlon James. So this book is really difficult to review because it is absolutely brilliant. I don't think anyone can dispute the fact that it's brilliant, but it's also really hard to like. It's kind of like the Sheldon Cooper of books. Everyone can agree that he's a genius, but none of us are lining up to switch places with Leonard and become his roommate. Black Leopard, Red Wolf is following the character of Tracker, and there is a boy that has gone missing that he has been hired to find. First of all, I do have to say that definitely trigger warnings for graphic content. There's a lot of graphic content in it, a lot of violence, and just like a lot of cringe-worthy scenes, which can sometimes be a good thing. For me, Black Leopard, Red Wolf went a little overboard on those cringe-worthy scenes. I think part of the reason was also I was listening to the audiobook, so the audiobooks definitely can get more graphic than a physical book while you're reading it, but I just like, there were some scenes where I was just like, please stop, don't do it, don't. And they did it, and I couldn't handle it sometimes. And that particular scene that I'm talking about has to do with someone's eye, and every single time I cannot do the eye scenes where people violate other people's eyes, basically. So yeah, that one was really difficult, but there are a lot of other scenes like that for different body parts. So for that reason, I didn't enjoy a lot of the book, but it wasn't just that. So for this book, I'm going to try and organize my review a little bit more than I normally do. And that's just because it's such a hard book to review. But I'm going to talk about the big four, basically. Character, plot, world building, and writing style. So first, we have character, which I honestly didn't like any of the characters. There was not one character that I was attached to. I think they were well written. I think Tracker himself had a good arc, but I wasn't attached to him. I didn't like him. I didn't love to hate him. There was like, I had no feelings toward the characters. So for that, I just didn't have anything great to say about the characters. It was just kind of meh for me. So plot-wise, the first 2/3 of this plot was very hard to read. It was very, very difficult to read. It was very disjointed. It was kind of like reading, I think, a fever dream is what some people have called it. It was hard to follow, and for me, I thought at first that it was the audiobook, but I would like literally go back and re-listen to scenes over and over again, and I was listening to it a lot slower than I normally do, and I still it wasn't connecting with me. I had such a difficult time following the first 2/3 of this book. The last 1/3 of this book was good. I liked the plot for the last 1/3 of this book. I really, really loved the plot for the last 1/3 of this book. But the first 2/3 of this book was really, really hard to get through. So plot is I have really strong feelings positively about the end. I have really strong feelings negatively about the beginning and the middle for plot. Then we have setting. So setting is descriptions, and it's also world building. So I honestly think it was very well built, like world building standards, but with descriptions, I had a little difficulty with the descriptions because the book wasn't overly detailed, but it did get detailed in the more graphic scenes, which I didn't really appreciate. When I want detail in a book, I do usually want detail. I want detail not just of the dark stuff. I want detail of the pretty stuff and the beautiful stuff and the mundane stuff, and then give me details of the dark stuff also. I don't mind graphic content in my books. I just don't want it to be the only content in my books. And for this one, it felt a little bit like a lot of the graphic content was just the only real content you were getting in the books that you can actually hold on to. Everything else was kind of just slipping away, if that makes any sense. And then for writing style, this is where I have to give all the praises to this book because the writing in this book is phenomenal. I loved the writing in this book. It almost feels like poetry when you're reading it. I listened to the audiobook, and the audiobook is the most unique audiobook that I've ever listened to. I absolutely love the audiobook. The audiobook narrator is brilliant. I absolutely loved him. I think the only reason I finished this book is because the audiobook was so well produced. It was gorgeous, and I really, really loved it. So for this book, I had such a difficult time giving it a review because of that, because it's just such a difficult book to get into. If you don't like grimdark fantasy, you're not gonna like this book. If you do like grimdark fantasy, you still might not like this book because there's not a whole lot of fantasy elements there. There are some, like there are shifters, which I loved. I loved getting to know the shifters in this book, and I got into a very shifter mood because of this book, but there's not a whole lot of detail going into like histories and how all of this came about. There's not a whole lot of explanation about all of that, so it's more of like a lighter fantasy, which is why I guess it's compared to Game of Thrones. I guess I should probably address that because this book has been compared to Game of Thrones so much in the media. I disagree with that comparison very much. It depends on what you want to read in Game of Thrones. Like for me, Game of Thrones is this large, sweeping, epic fantasy with many character plot lines that interweave perfectly. And you're not gonna find that in this book. This book only follows one character plot line, and I'm sure that maybe with other books it'll interweave with other characters more, but it's only one character. There are no real female characters in this book, and in Game of Thrones there are a lot of great female characters, and also in Game of Thrones, the descriptions and stuff, they show the prettier side and the nicer side of life, and then they also show the uglier side. So the graphic descriptions in Game of Thrones just feels like an extension of the detailed descriptions of the books in general, while in Black Leopard, Red Wolf, the graphic descriptions just felt like the only part of the description. There was no other description to extend from. It was just the graphic description. So that made it a lot more difficult for me to read. Also, this book, like, it takes a lot of brain power to read this book. I went into like multiple reading slumps while I was listening to the audiobook. Mind you, it's a 24-hour audiobook. I usually can listen to a 24-hour audiobook in 3 to 4 days. It took me 2 whole weeks to listen to this audiobook, and I couldn't really read anything else at the same time. I couldn't read anything physically. I couldn't listen to any other audiobooks. I was just stuck on this one the entire time because the audiobook is very compelling, mind you. It's very easy to like just get sucked into it, but I also had to go back and re-listen to scenes over and over again because I wasn't understanding it, if that makes sense. So it takes a lot of brain power to really understand what you're consuming with this book. That being said, if you are interested in it, I definitely think you should try it. At least try the audiobook if nothing else, because the audiobook is phenomenal. I absolutely loved it. But it is an interesting one. It's definitely kind of crazy. It's definitely difficult to read. It's disorienting, but the ending does make up for that a good amount. At the end of all of this, I decided like the first 2/3 of the book were a 2-star book for me. I couldn't give it more than 2 stars. The last 1/3 of the book, I wanted to give it 5 stars. If you calculate all that out, it comes up to like 3.02 stars. So in the end, I ended up giving this book 3 stars, but it's such a hard book because I'm torn with this book. I don't really know what to do with it. So I hope that was helpful to you guys. I don't think I answered any questions. If you have any questions, please let me know down below, because it's definitely a difficult book to talk about because it's really, really good, but at the same time, it's really, really hard to like. I think that's the best way I can explain that. So if you have any questions about this book, please let me know down below. I will try and answer them. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. I post videos every Monday, Tuesday, Friday, and Saturday, so consider subscribing. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up to support my channel. All social media links are in the description down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!